Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host Hisham Tilawi. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to tell you a story of two ships. Two ships in the Mediterranean. One is American and the other one is Turkish. The American ship was attacked by Israel. 34 sailors died. The Turkish ship was attacked by Israel. 20 people died. Both of those incidents happened in the waters of the Mediterranean Sea. And to be exact, it was in the international waters. That is the waters that basically anyone can be there. And it happened that this ship, this Turkish ship, was in the Mediterranean Sea, close to Gaza, but not in the waters of Gaza. Like I said, it was in the international waters of Gaza, and on May 31st, a couple of days ago, the Israeli army, or actually the Israeli Navy, attacked this ship around 4 o'clock in the morning, killing 20 people. The other ship, the American ship, also was attacked by the Israeli Air Force, and 34 sailors died. The American ship was the USS Liberty, that was back on June 8, 1967. You see where the torpedo had entered the ship. At first, Israel said that it was a mistaken identity. And then they blamed it on the Egyptians. And as a matter of fact, the United States Air Force, 2 fighter jets, equipped with nuclear warheads, headed towards Cairo on that day in 1967, on June 8. They were recalled minutes before they reached their destination, when it was found that it was not the Egyptians who attacked the ship, but it was America's #1 ally, Israel. Well, 43 years later, the Israelis repeated their attack, acting as if the Mediterranean Sea belongs to them, as if the Mediterranean Sea is just an Israeli lake outside of Tel Aviv, where they can go in and kill people anytime they wish. And that's exactly, ladies and gentlemen, what happened a couple of days ago. And that's exactly what happened 43 years ago. And 43 years later, the American people still don't have an answer to exactly what happened to the USS Liberty. Now, thank God that today we do have televisions and news media. And as a matter of fact, many news agencies were aboard the Turkish ship. Now, let me give you a little bit more information about the Turkish ship. The Turkish ship was part of a 6 ships. They were headed to Gaza, filled with humanitarian supplies, filled with food, toys, medicines. Basically, taking these supplies to the children and the people of Gaza, who had been under Israeli siege for 40 years. Now, of course, your television sets will not bring you the truth. They brought you Netanyahu, who said that these were not peaceful people, and this was not the love boat, that this was the hate boat. We tell Netanyahu this was the love boat because it was filled with nothing but normal people, everyday average citizens of the world. Not just one country, not just Turkey. People were on this ship from England, from Belgium, from France, from Germany, from many of the Arab countries, from many of the Muslim countries, from many of South American countries. It was not just a Turkish ship, and it was not a hate ship, but it was a love ship. It was a love boat. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be, we will have two guests. As a matter of fact, they happen to be my best friends. One of them is Phil Turney, who is a survivor of the USS Liberty. He was one of the fortunate people to survive the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty on June 8, 1967. And also my best friend is also with me, Mark Glynn. Of course, Mark has been on the program many times. Many of you are familiar with Mark and his writings. And of course, he was my partner on my radio show until recently. But before we go to our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to show you a couple of clips to set the stage for our guests. And when we come back, we're going to draw parallels between the USS Liberty and the Gaza Liberty ship. So let's play a couple of these clips to set the stage for you, and we will be right back.
Well, strong condemnation is growing around the world after the Israeli military attacked a flotilla of ships carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza. This footage captured the moment the operation began, when Israeli commandos boarded one of the main vessels. Say up to 20 peace activists were killed and dozens injured as commandos stormed the flotilla in international waters. Some of the ships have now arrived in the Israeli port city of Ashdod. That's where RT's Paula Slier sent this report from.
Two of the ships have been brought here to the Ashdod port. We know that Israeli naval officers are on board. They're searching the vehicles. They're expecting to find what has been the Israeli position since the early hours of this morning, and that is that ammunition, guns, knives, all of that is on board these vehicles. The Israeli army maintaining that its soldiers came under live fire when they boarded one of those ships. Now this of course is being denied by the passengers of the ships. They insist that they were a peaceful demonstration trying to bring world attention to the economic blockade on Gaza. Some of them have already arrived here in Ashdod. They are being ordered back to their countries of origin. Those that are refusing to go are being detained in the detention center that you might see behind me. Now the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has called this a slaughter at sea. The international condemnation has been fast and furious, with some Russian politicians saying that this is a tragic event and an investigation needs to be carried out. This is being echoed by the European Union. The EU spokesperson had this to say.
The EU strongly condemns any acts of violence and deplores any excessive use of force. In this regard, on behalf of the EU, the High Representative is requesting a full, immediate inquiry by the Israeli authorities. The EU reiterates its call for an immediate, sustained and unconditional opening of crossings in Gaza for the flow of humanitarian aid, commercial goods and persons to and from Gaza.
The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has also expressed his deep regret and shock. We're hearing from Turkey. It's calling for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Now, earlier I compiled this package, which essentially recaps the events of the past few hours. The goal was to make headlines, and the protesters certainly did, but at a price none of them could have imagined. More than 10 dead, and the casualty count is still climbing. It began late Sunday night with Israeli soldiers warning the 6 ships to turn back.
We can visually see 3 frigates and a helicopter hovering overhead, despite the fact that we're in international waters, some 100 miles away from the shores of Israel. We call upon everybody in Britain to help us to raise alarm and get our government to intervene.
But something went wrong, and Israeli commander officers climbed on board. It's confusing what happened next. The Israelis say they came under fire, that there were weapons and knives on board, and that the organizers had close ties with Hamas and Al-Qaeda. But the protesters, who come from many different countries, say it's simply not true.
לוקחים גם את החבל השני, אני חוזר, לוקחים גם את החבל השני. ירד אחד, ירד לוחם. הם תופסים אותו. וואי. ארבע תטפל בחופשים, אני מעיר את האונייה ומפריע להם. מעט מיוצר. הם מביאים עוד, הוא הביא עוד. כתבת לפני שהם מביאים אמצעים אלימים כמו מוטות וחבלים. אתה ב-15 נשאר בינתיים? הם זורקים שם, משהו נדלק שם. זרקו משהו פנימה, זרקו משהו זרק עליהם משהו חם. ורימון? זרק עליהם משהו. כן. והגג שלה יהיה נקי, או מתוך אחד הכלים שלנו. קיבלת? משהו חם. קיבלתי זה אחד. אתה לוקח כיוון חזרה? זה עולה זה. מה שתגיד, אם אתה רוצה שאני אמפיל פה כדי להחליט את המסור. אתה רוצה שאני אשכח חזרה? גם לא ככה כלום. זה אחד, אני קונה שתיקח כיוון חזרה.
מצוין, בשלב הבא קצין לאט לאט אנשים מתוך האולמות. Former Congressman and author Paul Finley of Illinois has submitted the following remarks to be presented today. June 8, 1967 will live as a day of infamy. It will be engraved indelibly when the American people confront the awful events that day. There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. The Israelis and the Egyptians were going to war, and we were sent to the Med to listen. So during the day, the only thing that really was to do was go out on Sunday. Even the captain was out on Sunday. Really nothing else to do. You just cruise along real slow and you listen to everything you can hear. And boy, it slaughtered the people out there. And I could see, in the distance, you could see the shoreline. You could see smoke, and you knew they were fighting over there. But then I saw that boxcar everybody's talking about fly over. And flying boxcar, they call them back right here. And coming out of the main spaces and going back to the shed where this thing was. And I look over and here's this flying boxcar deck level. Not more than 50, 100 feet from us. They're waving, we're waving. It's railing. Waved at these Israeli pilots, and, you know, like there was nothing to it, you know. Well, okay, we're all right. I want that down the roof. So for me, it sounded like somebody threw a handful of ball bearings on a piece of glass and they stuck. To me, it sounded like somebody threw a big handful of big rocks. What it was, these jets came in when they were unmarked, went right on by, later you came in and they started shooting. You should have seen the thing. It was just devastation everywhere. Just everything was burned, shot home, everywhere. The one thing that struck me most was the forecastle. The forecastle was a high part, the front part of the ship, and we had two gun tugs up there with 50 caliber machine guns on it. A lot of people in the gun mounts because we were at a ready situation. And those kids would throw right away. I mean, when they came through the first time, there was two down here, two guns up there, just all 50 caliber. They couldn't hit those guys and those jets. They couldn't even move them. But they were just killed. One of the guys was a gunner's mate. He ran up there, he was mad. He wanted to kill those people. And he got in with a gun club and it was good. Those of us that were down below decks, I pretty well thought it was the Arabs that were to spend the next 5 years in here in prison. I want something to read. I had a little pocket New Testament down there, so I went and got that pocket New Testament, stuck it in my pocket, and got my spare pair of glasses. And they said, well, you need to get up to the radio room. That's on the side that they're not attacking.
Well, they shot a lot of tanks. He's thinking this would go into those tubes and find those hot wires from the transmitter and suck it right in there and blow it up. So we didn't have any communication, and one of my guys went out, climbed up, and everybody shooting. And we ran a long wire, and we got a message.
Firefox, this is Rockstar. Under attack by unidentified surface and naval air units. Require immediate assistance.
They wanted to know some code, and the radio man pretty much told them they weren't going to get a code, but if they wanted to listen to what was going on, feel free.
We didn't see any assistance at all from the American government, from our own government, from our own Sixth Fleet that we were told there was 15 minutes away until 16, 18 hours later.
For the first time in history, our Commander-in-Chief demanded that U.S. forces abandon a mission to rescue a nearby U.S. Navy vessel, then under heavy deliberate attack by hostile military forces. The vessel was the USS Liberty, and the U.S. Commander-in-Chief was Lyndon Johnson. The hostile forces were Israeli.
Very good. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the story of these two ships, one American, one Turkish, carrying humanitarian aids to the Palestinians in Gaza. Now I'm joined with two good friends, Phil Turney, who is a USS Liberty survivor. He was on board of the USS Liberty when it was attacked. He's going to take us back 43 years ago on June 8th when Israel viciously murdered in cold blood these American sailors who were not in any position to harm the Israelis. And also we have Mark Glynn, also a good friend of mine who has been on the program many times. Let me welcome both of you to the program, Mark and Phil.
Dr. Talawi.
Yes, sir. How are you doing, Mr. Talawi? And thank you very much for giving Mark and I the opportunity to go over the monsters of the Mediterranean, what they did to our ship and what they did to the Turkish ship and those poor people just a few days ago is more than most people can stand. It's heartbreaking.
Very good. Well, and let me congratulate both of you on your newest book. The title of that book, and we do have a picture of it, What I Saw That Day. We will be discussing the book in details next week, but this week, Mark, let me start with you. Let's take it from what happened a couple of days ago to the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. And then we will go back to Phil to tell us exactly what happened 43 years ago. Mark, what do you read in this?
Well, what I read in this is that Israel is once again just behaving like Israel always has. She's like a pit bull. She will only attack the defenseless, will only attack people who cannot fight back. And when she does attack, she makes sure that she does something terrible. And by that I mean something that really leaves an impression on the world. You know, there was a movie that came out about 25 or so years ago called The Untouchables, and it was a story about Al Capone and his gangster friends. And there was a scene in the movie where Robert De Niro, who was playing the character of Al Capone, he was in this ballroom, and all of his prime associates were dressed up very nice. And he takes a baseball bat to the back of one of his associates' heads in front of all of them, and literally bashes this guy's brains out in front of everyone. And he did this to make a point. This is what happens when you get on his bad side. Well, this is what Israel has to do, whether it is Operation Cast Lead, whether it was the attack on Lebanon 3 years ago, whether it was the attack on the flotilla. She has to be brutal. She really does revel in the suffering that she causes innocent people. And it's about time, about 100 years too late, that the rest of the civilized world comes to understand this, because there really is a mad dog on the loose. As Phil described her, she is the monster of the Mediterranean.
So Mark, Israel said that this ship had guns, this ship had terrorists, and etc., etc. But we found out that this ship, the weapons that these people had, basically sticks and kitchen knives that you normally find on board of a ship, and we've seen pictures of the weapons that Israel, and these pictures coming from the Israelis themselves, of what they call weapons. I mean, they went on and gathered everything that you can find on a ship, and they said these were the weapons. Now, the ship was in international waters, which means Israel was in violations of international law to go into this ship. Second, these people were not armed like the Israelis were, and these people did not have helicopters. Now, watching the news media in the United States, one might think that, the Israelis had the right to do this. How long are the American people going to be played for fools when the rest of the world is showing totally different stories on their televisions, and the media, even in Europe, is picking up the story in a different light than the American media? Why the American media, and even after Israel had destroyed an American ship and killed American people, the American media, we find it playing Israel's side and trying to give excuses to what the Israeli army did? Explain that.
Well, why would you expect anything different? The United States government for 43 years has protected this country that initiated an act of war against the people of the United States, all 300 million of us, no different than what the Japanese did on December the 7th, 1941. If the U.S. government would cover up for the murder of its own citizens, men serving in uniform, then why would she not cover up for Israel when she kills a bunch of Turks or a bunch of non-Americans? Although the news out today is that one of the 9 who was killed was an American citizen. He was shot in the chest 4 times and once in the head, execution style, just as gangsters like to do. So why would we be surprised that the government of the United States would protect Israel? She always has protected Israel, and I hate to say it, but it's probably going to go on for some time.
Okay, very good. Phil, take us back 43 years ago. What were you doing on that ship anyway? What was your position on that ship?
Hashem, my position was I was in the engineering department, and our job was to make sure that the communications technicians, which were the sloops, the spies aboard the ship, were taken wherever they wanted to go, safe and sound. And we were put in a position to basically babysit them and take care of them, because that was one of the most sophisticated spy ships in America at that time. And we were at, well, see, what is the date? The 3rd. We were just leaving, getting into Rota, Spain, and then headed into the Mediterranean. But we got in the area early that morning, and the Israelis were, as you showed, my shipmates were saying there in the background, I could hear them, that the Israelis waved at us in their recon planes. We waved at them. Everything was fine. Our best friends were there. And I might add also that you said that Israel is our number 1 friend. Well, they're our number 1 friend, our number 2 friend, our number 3 friend, our number 4 friend, and go on and on and on and on. It's the only friend we've really got in the world, if you can call Israel a friend. But they go into infinity with the United States government, not with the United States people, but with the United States government. But the people are pretty well brainwashed too, and I'm glad I'm on a show like this, and you're doing a show like this so we can get the truth out. But anyway, they knew who we were, exactly who we were. They said we were an American, They even identified as USS Liberty and James Fighting Book. At 2 o'clock, the attack started with a vengeance. And they took out all of our antenna and our 450 caliber machine guns within 2 seconds. Everything was gone. Everything was gone. All the antennas. We had 43 antennas on that ship, and they took them all out. And the 4 machine guns within 2 seconds. So we know exactly why they were looking at us all morning, is to have each plane that went by pick out a certain area that they were going to take out, and they did exactly that. And they would shoot at anything that moved. And they said they only used 2 or 3 planes to attack us. Well, to do 850 cannon, over 850 cannon and rocket holes, they need a heck of a lot more than 2 or 3 airplanes. Some scientists or people that in the know say there are 12 to 16 airplanes that attacked us. And I believe that because of the damage they did to the ship. In fact, they had to scrap the ship. It was so bad. They broke the keel on the ship.
How long did the attack last?
It lasted about as long as the attack on Pearl Harbor, about 2 hours. And everybody knows what a 2-hour attack is that lived through Pearl Harbor. It's a long, long time. But they have stuff to fight back with, and we didn't. We had nothing. And our own government left us out there when they knew we were under attack by a foreign country because we didn't know who was attacking us. They had unmarked jet airplanes. And when the word did get out, get a long wire out, like Stan White said in the interview there that he was talking about.
No.
And we got a message out to the 6th Fleet. And help was coming to us off the USS Saratoga. Even before they hit the horizon, they were called back. Captain Tully sent another rescue attempt right after that one. It was also called back by the President of the United States and McNamara.
Phil, why would the President of the United States stop aid from coming to an injured American ship?
Because he said he didn't give a GD if our ship sunk and every man aboard it was killed. He was not going to embarrass his ally, Israel. Now, how did he know Israel was attacking us when we didn't know who was attacking us? We didn't have a clue. We had no idea until the torpedo boats got there. And that
now, tell me about the torpedo hit. I mean, I've never been on a ship that was hit with a torpedo. How was that experience?
Well, what happened? They had 3 torpedo boats, and they shot 5 torpedoes at us, Hashem. And somehow the captain maneuvered the ship to miss 4 of them, but one hit us directly amidships in the communications technicians part of the ship. That's where the spies were, and blew 25 of those young men to bits. But it brought the ship, Hashem, completely out of the water. And the ship starts shaking, and it came back down with a huge slam, and you could hear the metal on the ship. It was almost like a woman crying out. The ship was crying and bending, and it was just, then it started to tip over to the starboard side, and I thought the ship was just going to roll over. It took a heck of a list, and it stopped rolling, and then we went back on deck to see what was going on, and they were firing at our firefighters and stretcher bearers. Now this is still torpedo boats. Then we finally learned that, hey, these are the Israelis that are doing this, that are shooting at us, because we can see their flags on their boats. And here they are trying to kill us all with their machine guns and cannons, shooting at helpless Americans, trying to drag other Americans off the deck. We're trying to fight fires, and they're shooting at us. They were shooting at us like target practice. They were having a great time. And the only reason the torpedo boats quit firing at us is because they run out of ammunition. They run out of anything to shoot us with. And it's a wonder they didn't try to ram us. It wouldn't have done any good, but it would have ruined their boat. But it was just a mess. And then we put over life rafts. There was only 3 life rafts left out of a crew of 294. We had enough life rafts on there for 294 souls. Only 3 were left. We were going to put our most severely wounded men in those life rafts and pray to God that they could stay alive.
Now,
the Israelis shot those life rafts out of the water.
Now, Phil, at one time, of course, you guys did not know this, but at one time, two planes left a warship on the from the Sixth Fleet headed towards Cairo.
USS America.
Yes. Why were they headed towards Cairo?
Well, they were headed towards Cairo to drop nuclear bombs on them. That's exactly where they were going. They were within 2 minutes to 120 seconds of a nuclear holocaust. Now, if our ship doesn't go down, the gig was up is what happened. There was a message that come out, a false message, that said help was on the way. That's the only reason that the helicopters they sent to finish us off left. And
so who blamed Egypt for the attack?
Well, the United States was going to blame Egypt, and Israel was going to blame Egypt. With all the firepower they put on us, they figured they'd have us on the bottom within 2 or 3 to 5 minutes at the very tops. But we took everything they could give us, Hashem. They beat us up for 2 hours with rockets, cannons, machine guns, torpedoes, anything they could throw at us. They did. Napalm.
So basically,
their butt.
They wanted to sink that ship and kill everyone in it and blame it on the Egyptians.
Absolutely. That's what the whole deal was, and it was a setup. We were set up from the get-go.
And so who saved the moment? Who saved the moment and recalled those jet fighters from hitting Cairo?
The United States of America. When their plan didn't go as they wanted, and we didn't sink, and we had already gotten the message out that went out around the world that the Israelis were attacking us, the gig was up. They recalled the aircraft just in time before they dropped nuclear weapons on they would turn that whole country and all of its citizens into glass. I mean, millions of people would have been killed, and it was all a land grab. That's all it was. It was a land grab for Israel. And it's still a land grab.
Okay.
They didn't get what they wanted because our ship didn't sink.
Very good. Mark, you've done a lot of research on the USS Liberty, and you wrote the book with Phil. To tell me, was there an investigation? What did that investigation entail? What happened?
6 days. They investigated it for 6 days. And they concluded at the end of this 6-day investigation that it was all a case of mistaken identity, that Israel didn't know that she was firing on an American ship. Oh, it was just a mistake, like stepping on somebody's toes accidentally. Just by comparison, Hashem, the attack on the USS Cole just a few years ago that killed half as many men as were killed on board the USS Liberty. And it was not a 2-hour sustained attack that the attack on the Liberty was. The USS Cole was investigated for at least 6 months. Okay.
Okay.
So,
what was the result of that investigation? And also, how come until today we don't really have an investigation of what really happened on that day in 1967?
Because the investigation was that Israel was innocent of any wrongdoing. That was the result of the investigation. The reason why nobody knows anything about this is because 5 minutes, take your notes, brain-dead, propagandized Americans, and 5 minutes listening to somebody such as Phil Turney, or even better, Captain Ward Boston, who was chief legal counsel, who was responsible for investigating the whole thing, when he came out and admitted in 2005, I believe it was, that he had been personally ordered by the President of the United States to rule that the attack was a case of mistaken identity. 5 minutes with these facts, and even the most brain-dead American is going to conclude that Israel knew what she was doing.
And by the way, we interviewed Ward Boston here back in 2005, and we do have like 2 hours of that interview available on the internet for anyone. They could go and see it. And it's coming from the person who actually did the investigation. Now, Phil, what happened to the rest of the surviving crew of the USS Liberty? What happened to you guys after that?
Well, most of the crew that was injured or dead. Of course, they were taken off the next morning after 18 hours of us being alone and trying to stay alive. But they dispersed the crew as fast as they could. There was one fellow that was badly injured, and they sent him to Germany. And I won't say his name over the air, but he woke up with a wristband that said Smith on his name, and that was not his name at all. And he was told by a very senior officer never to repeat anything that he saw that day or did that day, or he would end up in prison or worse, just as I was told by Admiral Isaac Kidd, the very same thing. This flag admiral told me if I ever repeated a word about what happened that day or what I saw or who did it, I would end up in prison or worse. We all knew what worse meant, and that meant dead. And after we knew our government wouldn't come help us, believe me, that put the fear of God in us. And I didn't say anything for over 20 years after the attack. In fact, when I remarried, I never told my wife about it.
So, Phil, what happened to you guys after that, though? Did you stay in the Navy? Did they keep you all together? Did they send everyone to a different city? What happened?
Most of the crew left the ship. There was a handful of us that stayed aboard the ship. I was one of them that brought the ship back to Norfolk. We took it into Malta and took it into for repairs. We were there about a month or so, and then we sailed it back to Little Creek, Virginia. Now, that wasn't our home port, but Little Creek was out further. They kept us far away as they could from any media or anything like that. But they made the ship look almost brand new. They took it. We wanted to bring it back battle scarred, fix the torpedo hole, and let's get sailing. Let's go back home. But they didn't do that. They made it brand new, and so like nothing happened to us. It was a disgusting disgrace.
But Phil, what I really want to know is what happened to you guys over the years. I mean, did they keep you in the same unit, or they split everybody up?
They split everybody up. Everybody was split up. A lot of people got out of the Navy.
Was there a reason why they did not keep you guys together?
Absolutely. They didn't want us talking to each other or becoming braver than we thought we were and talking about it. And it became a very voodoo thing. In fact, nobody talked about it until a book came out, Assault on the Liberty. And when people started reading that, the guys, we all got a Liberty Veterans Association and started talking. And I've been talking ever since, and trying to get the truth out to the American people.
Now, Phil, I mean, you heard about Israel, of course, before you went in the Navy, and you knew that Israel was at war with the Arabs back in 1967. And as most Americans probably, you were feeling for Israel and on the side of Israel at that time. I don't know. I'm just assuming that. But tell me what happened to Phil Turney in this journey from, I mean, do you know more about the Arabs? Do you know more about the Palestinians? Do you know more about the Israelis? Tell me about Phil Turney's journey into this.
That's a good question, Shem. My journey is taken me through many different parts of my life, from extreme depression to alcoholism to just helpless and hopelessness. But I learned through the years who the enemy is and what they can do to people and how they do it. And I found out, and I know in my heart, that there's not one person that attacked our ship, or their sponsors, or the people that support them, that give a damn about any Americans or anybody else. And I'm talking about the government of Israel or anybody that supports them. And I'm also talking about the people in the United States, the Jewish community in the United States that supports the position that Israel did this by accident, is just as guilty of murdering Americans as the Israelis. And listen, if they know the truth and they don't speak out, that's why they're just as guilty. If they're true Americans, they will speak out on our behalf. Now that's just the way I feel about it, and I've learned that look what the Palestinians are in an open-air prison camp, and our Army Corps of Engineers are building the fence to keep them in there. 1.5 million people. Now that's why these ships went over to help these poor people, and then they get boarded and make people get killed. So far, I don't know if it's more than 9 or how many, but it was. I'll tell you, when I found out that that Turkish ship got boarded, people were getting killed and things like that, and then I watched the TV, and every analyst on there was saying, poor Israel. You know, these guys are always having people give them problems. Why didn't they do this, or why didn't they do that? I can't believe it. I mean, these guys are coming down with machine guns, and these people that are unarmed, they're trying to defend themselves. What are they supposed to do? Just lay down and get shot? I mean, my God, I mean, they're in international waters like we were. So let's face it, Israel can get by with anything because the United States of America will back them just like they did in the UN. Now they're going to let the fox cover the hen house, and they're going to do their own investigation. Do you think they're going to find themselves guilty? Hell no, they're not. The world is condemning Israel right now, but how long is that going to last? Just like the USS Liberty. We were in the news for 1 day, 2 days, that's it, and it was all over with. Now today, I didn't hear anything on the news about Israel and what happened to those poor people that were trying to take food and medicine and supplies and cement and building materials to the deprived people of Palestine, the sick and hungry.
Phil, just for sake of time, because we're running out of time here, how did you feel when you found out that one of your comrades on the USS Liberty, I believe Joseph Meters, I think, or Meters, that he was actually on board of the flotilla, the Gaza Freedom Flotilla? How did you feel to know that one of you guys was on that Turkish ship?
Well, I tell you what I felt. I felt mostly I felt a great deal of pride and honor that one of our shipmates would be on there taking supplies and food and medicine to helpless people. And the other emotion was I was afraid that he might get killed or badly hurt, and neither of those happened. He's home now, and he's fine. But I have to give him credit. I'm very, very, very proud of him that he put his life on the line to help the helpless. And I wish they could have got those supplies to the Palestinians, but they had not done that. And like I say, I'm very proud of Joe, and God bless him for what he did. And if I had a chance, I'd have been on that thing too. I'd have been on one of those boats, but I wasn't asked. But like I said, I'm very proud he's home and he did it. And so he has not had very much good luck with the Israelis. Let's put it that way.
Mark, do you think the Israelis messed up with this thing, or I really feel that they could have probably stopped the ship somehow by damaging the engine, the propeller or something, and towed this ship to an Israeli port. I'm just confused of the Israelis knew, because those people on the ship, they said a day before, and it was all over the news, they said they're going to face the Israeli soldiers if they try to board the ship, and that they said they're going to defend the ship, and they said we're going to use everything that we have here. Of course, they don't have any weapons. They had some sticks and iron rods that they probably took off of beds over there. I don't know. All the pictures I've seen, there's no actual weapons. Now, why would Israel actually and send these helicopters with like only one soldier at a time on board of that ship, on the deck of that ship? Was that stupid, or they really wanted it that way?
No, I tend to think that with them, look, these people understand the importance of perception. Okay, they rule Hollywood. They know that if you can control perception, you can control policy and culture and everything else. So the perception that they wanted to project in front of the entire world is that nobody screws around with Israel, whether it's women and children in Gaza or women and children in Lebanon or women and children on boats in international waters. They wanted to be able to show that they will even kill innocent, unarmed people if they get on the bad side of Israel. That's number one. Number two, I think that they also wanted to show the world that indeed they have the United States by the you-know-what. Because look what the United States is doing. Everybody around the world is condemning Israel except for the...
But actually, Mark, this was actually damaging for Israel, and therefore they could have done it a different way and accomplished the same result. Now,
well, but this is the way that Netanyahu and the Likud mix.
But let me tell you where I'm going with this, Mark. Let me tell you where I'm going with this, and this is something that would probably be bigger than, and I haven't seen it actually reported anywhere, because right now we know what Turkey, the role that Turkey is trying to play, or somebody's probably wanting Turkey to play a role in the Middle East to probably offset the role that Iran is playing. And definitely...
That is my theory. My theory
well, definitely... Well, let me finish this. Definitely, and that's why I was going with that, is that they could have done it a different way, but they chose not to do it. Now, if they would have just pulled this ship to the Israeli port, I mean, Turkey would have gotten a little bit of publicity, but not as much publicity, and probably the next day everybody would forget about the flotilla if these people did not die on board and if it was not violence. And so, I mean, is somebody trying to maneuver here? Are the big powers, the United States, involved in it? And whose side is the United States involved in? I mean, is it, whose side are they on? Are they pushing the Turks to do this, or what's going on? What are your analysis of this?
Well, my opinion, you're exactly right. The role that Turkey played in this is not accidental. And you look at the way that Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey, the way he is now the new master within the Arab world, right? Even though, you know, the Arabs, they wanted their independence from Turkey for hundreds of years, and now Turkey all of a sudden is the savior of the Arab world. Turkey,
well, and he's Sunni too, and the Arab world is Sunni, so that will play...
Exactly. So they are terrified. They are terrified that Iran is going to become a dominant power in the Middle East. They don't want the Arabs of whatever stripe, whether they're Sunni or Shia, to rally around Iran. So what they're going to do is they're going to have them rally around Turkey. Turkey is a NATO member country. Turkey is tied to the Western economies. Okay, so Turkey is manageable, whereas Iran is not. So in a certain sense, I think, in fact, one of the news reports I read today said that these two ships were having a mechanical problem. That they kind of held back. They were kept behind. One of them being the Rachel Corrie. And that because these other two ships were having mechanical problems, this allowed the Turkish ship actually to be the dominant ship in this flotilla. So the fact that it was the Turkish ship that was attacked and that you had Turkish citizens that were killed, I think that this is deliberate. One reason, as you and I discussed, is that they would like to see Turkey become the rallying point for all of these Arab countries so that they can keep everybody basically from falling into Iran's camp. And in the meantime, Turkey won't do anything. You know, like I said, she is a NATO power. She is tied to the Western economies, but she is manageable, whereas Iran is not.
Okay. Phil, you had the position of the president of the USS Liberty Veterans Association, I believe. And
yes, I was president. I'm the only three-time president of that organization. I was president 3 different times.
Okay. So did you guys try to have the United States Congress look more into this? And actually, I mean, you know, most of the guys who were on that ship, they're probably not with us anymore. I'm sure you were a young kid at that time. So is that book closed totally? We're not going to have an investigation of what happened?
as far as the United States is concerned and the government of Israel, the case is closed. It's been investigated, and we brought a war crimes complaint against these people, and they shoved it under the rug. It went completely nowhere. Admiral Thomas More had a commission. He had a commission of generals and admirals and diplomats that looked into this for days and days and days, and they all come up to the same conclusion. It was not a mistaken identity. It was a calculated, planned, deliberate act of war on the government of the United States and our so-called leaders in the Congress and the president, from Johnson to Barack Obama. They bend backwards to do anything they can for Israel, and this government will never, ever investigate the murder of Americans on the high seas, period. Not as long as Israel has AIPAC and ADL and films on all these senators and congressmen doing their dirty deeds behind back doors. They got them all blackmailed, as far as blackmailed with money or videos or whatever. That's my view of them, and I'm sick that this government would do that. And, hey, Hashem, we're fighting 2 wars for Israel right now. We're fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're losing people every day. We've lost 5,500 people. How many wounded? Tens of thousands. No arms or legs, no eyes, no ears, no faces. What kind of lives they got ahead of them? All for the sake of Israel.
Phil.
I mean, Jesus. Now they're trying to get us in another war.
President Obama said a couple of days ago that he wanted an investigation. He wanted transparency in that investigation. And I'm wondering if the President of the United States asked for transparency in the investigation of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, why they don't ask for a transparency in the investigation of the USS Liberty?
Well, if the true story comes out about the USS Liberty, and they find out that it was a premeditated attack to murder Americans on the high seas, the American people wouldn't stand for it. They wouldn't stand for it 43 years ago, come June the 8th. They wouldn't stand for it today.
Let me ask you this. What should have been done on that day, the 6th Fleet should have went to the Mediterranean and taught the Israelis a lesson that they will never forget. That's what America should have done on that day. Wouldn't you agree, both of you?
Absolutely. You bet. Listen, it was an act of war. And as far as I'm concerned, the United States is still at war with Israel for what they did. I mean, you just can't throw people's lives away like that. I mean, these guys had a future ahead of them. They were all young guys, most of them were between 20 and 24 years old, and they got slaughtered. Hashem, I mean, they're blown to bits. Their lives are ruined. I mean, and the wounded. You ought to see some of these guys. I mean, arms, legs. One guy I'll never forget. He had a 50 caliber bullet creased right in the top of his head. You could see the gray matter of his brain. He was missing a thumb. I mean, Jesus, this guy was blown up. I mean, there's this one guy that had over 500 pieces of shrapnel in him.
Mark, very quickly, we only have like a minute left. Now, next week we're going to have you guys back here to talk about the book of what Phil Turney saw on that day. Give us just a 50-second preview of what's in the book.
The book is all written from the first-person perspective, as you indicated. The title is What I Saw That Day, and it's Phil Turney's story. And it's not just the day of the attack, but everything that has taken place after that over the course of the last 43 years. The cover-up, the broken marriage, the alcoholism, and including 9/11 and what we're dealing with today, because it really is a story of betrayal, not just betrayal by his government and by our quote-unquote ally that day, but everything that has taken place since then, the way that America has been transformed into an outpost of Israel instead of the bastion of freedom that it was intended to be.
Very good. Gentlemen, all I can say right now is thank you for coming on the program, and we look forward to next week to talk about the book. Thanks, Phil. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate being on your show.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Phil Turney, a USS Liberty survivor. He was on board of the USS Liberty ship that night, or that day actually, when Israel attacked it and killed 34 Americans. And we're going to see you next week with both of these gentlemen again. Good night. Go do the right thing.